Hello, welcome. This video is a response to several videos that have been put up on YouTube by somebody going by the name of Ranty Rant Rant, and also Anthony Riley has been involved as well. So these videos are looking at Blackpool Tower photographed at night from Hoylake, which is about 30 miles away, 29 and a bit miles away from Blackpool Tower as the crow flies. And the most recent videos are claiming that Blackpool Tower, which is here, is shown clearly, and I have no doubt that this is Blackpool Tower, and that the two lights here over on the right hand side of the image, this one right on the edge and one a bit further in, are the big one is this bright light, which is a roller coaster, and an attraction called the Mirror Ball is claimed to be here. Now, I'm not sure that they've got this quite right, and so I'm going to explain why they think these are the lights, the big one and the Mirror Ball, and then explain why I think they've got it wrong. So just to give you some orientation, Blackpool Tower is located here. The big one is here, and the Mirror Ball is here. And what Ranty Rant Rant has done is to measure the distance on Google Earth between Blackpool Tower and the big one at 1.86 miles, and has done the same thing to the Mirror Ball, so that's 2.25 miles, and he has converted those distances to feet and then placed a ruler to scale against his photograph, showing that at 9.82 roughly millimeters we get the first of the lights, so claiming this is the big one, and at 11.88 millimeters, I think he's a bit short here because 11.88 would be a little bit further to the edge, but he's claiming that the distances tally up very well. And this is the basis for their claim, or his claim, that this is the big one and that this is the Mirror Ball. Now, I think they've got this wrong, and I'd like to explain why I think they've got it wrong, and perhaps have a stab at identifying what these two lights are. So back into Google Earth here, and we can see that I've marked Blackpool Tower, the big one, and the Mirror Ball in the same way. I'm going to take those little pins off, and I've also drawn some lines on here. Now, the important thing is to remember that they are observing the Blackpool Tower from this location, and so these are the lines of sight towards Blackpool. The measurements that Ranty Rant Rant made are measurements along this distance here, and so effectively as if viewing Blackpool from somewhere to the west and looking eastwards. But he was south, pretty much due south, not quite due south, of Blackpool, and looking at it at this rather oblique angle. So if we zoom in and look at the locations concerned, so we have a red line here marking Blackpool Tower. It goes through Blackpool Tower. I'll just zoom in so you can see that. It goes right through the base of Blackpool Tower and just a little bit beyond. It's just difficult to get it to stop at Blackpool Tower. Here we have, in the yellow line, we have the tallest point, which is the one. There are 2 points I think that have a red light on the big one. This is the highest point, and the other one runs in this direction. And actually the two lights would be very, very close together, and that might explain why the light is very bright on this on the photograph. And then further down the coast we have a green line to the mirror ball. So you can see this is indeed the mirror ball here, and the line going pretty much to the foot of the mirror ball. Now, if we think about what the image would show, the distance between the Blackpool Tower and the light on top of the big one would be this distance here, which is Blackpool Tower to the big one. And if we have a look at the measurements of that, we find that this is 0.24 miles. If we convert that to feet, we have 1,288 feet. And the distance from the mirror ball to Blackpool Tower is given by this red line here. And again, if we look at the distance, this is 1,370 feet. So we have just about 100 feet of difference here. So if we go back to the big one, it was 1288 and we have 1370. So about 90 to 100 feet difference between here, over a total distance, or say a distance from here of 1288 feet. So this distance is roughly, let's say, 1/12. Maybe it's more like a 13th or more of the distance between these two. Now, translating that back to the image that Ranty Rant Rant shows, we can see quite clearly that and I'll show you in just a moment, that these distances do not correspond to the picture that he shows. So there's a couple of ways we can look at this. First of all, we can look at the image taken from Ranty Rant Rant's video and compare whether we think this distance here fits into this distance or the overall distance enough times. And I've done a quick kind of measurement of this just using arrows, and we see that actually even using his image, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a bit. As I say, I don't think his measurements are very accurate on that ruler, and these are probably not totally accurate, but it gives you an idea, 6 and a bit times that distance will fit into the overall space. So this portion of the video contains a correction to the one published yesterday. I made an error yesterday when transferring Ranty's figures onto the spreadsheet, particularly this figure, which affected the difference between these two figures, and then the number of times that the difference fits into the total distance. So what I've done here is put the figures that Ranty had in his video of the distance between the various points on Google Earth. So this is effectively traveling kind of north to south down the coast in Blackpool, from Blackpool Tower to the big one, which was 9,820 feet, and the distance from Blackpool Tower to the mirror ball being 11,880 feet. And if you calculate the difference between those two distances, you get 2,060 feet. And
2,060 feet will fit into the overall distance of 11,880 feet, a total of 5.76. We can round it up to 5.8 times. Now, these distances are completely incorrect from the angle at which Ranty was viewing the Blackpool Tower and the lights that he could see. So, looking at the distances that we plotted on Google Earth using lines of sight from Hoylake, the correct distances are 1,288 feet, 1,370 feet, the difference being 82 feet. And the number of times that 82 feet will fit into the total distance of 1,370 feet is 16.7 times. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy here between these two figures. And the correct figures are undoubtedly the ones on the right, the distances between the points using the line of sight from Hoylake. That's what we were looking at, and these are completely incorrect figures. They would be correct only if Ranty had been viewing Blackpool from virtually due west, looking eastwards towards the Blackpool seafront. So returning to Ranty's image, where he measured the distances here and got them to correspond with the distances on Google Earth that he measured, but going in the wrong direction or viewing Blackpool from the wrong direction, these distances that he recorded did seem to match up with the image that he saw. But as we've said, he was viewing this from or taking these measurements from completely the wrong direction. If we now look and do something similar with the original image and see whether the figures correspond to what was on the spreadsheet on the previous slide. So here is a admittedly slightly crude method, but what I've done is to measure the distance between these two lights, or mark the distance using this arrow, and then I've looked to see how many times this arrow fits in the total distance between Blackpool Tower and the light which Ranty claims is the mirror ball. And you can see that it fits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, with a bit left over, probably about a quarter of the length of the line. So 6.25 times that this distance between the two lights here fits into the overall distance. Now, according to Ranty's own figures, it should be 5.7 times. Now, that might be close in terms of an experimental error or measuring error. You could adjust the lengths of the lines, the arrows that I've got here, just a little bit, and probably get it to fit about 5.75 times. But those figures are completely wrong. What we should expect, if this really is the mirror ball, and this is the big one, the light on the big one, what we really should expect is that this distance here should fit into the overall space nearly 17 times, 16.7 times, and clearly it doesn't do that.
So back on Google Earth, and I had a look round to see what I thought could be the lights. I'm quite convinced by the bright red light being the big one. requires a light. If you look down here, you can see that we have the airport, small local airport for Blackpool, which actually probably pretty busy during times when there's major golf tournaments on. There's a lot of golf courses nearby here. You can see one there right next to the airport. Tall buildings, tall structures require to have lights on them so that the pilots can identify them. Now, so I'm quite happy with that. The mirror ball is not very tall. It's and this is the whole basis of Ranty Rant Rant's video, is that he claims this is so small we shouldn't be able to see it from Hoylake, and I don't think we do see it from Hoylake. I think it is hidden below the horizon, exactly as a curved Earth would predict. And I looked around, and there is a structure here which is known as the Ice Blast. It is a tall tower, as you can see if we zoom in on it. This is about 200 feet tall, and I suspect that this tower is actually has to have a light on it as well. There are a couple of other towers not nearly so tall nearby, but the big one itself is only about 30 or 40 feet higher at this tallest point here than the Ice Blast is. And if we now look at the Ice Blast and the distance from the Ice Blast to the Ice Blast to the Blackpool Tower line from Hoylake, we get this distance here. So this is Ice Blast to Blackpool Tower, and the measurements are 1,536 feet. And so if the one light, or the bright light, was the big one, the roller coaster, and the other light was the Ice Blast, then we can work out the relative distance between these and see if they fit. So a quick look at the distances now from the Ice Blast to the Blackpool Tower line, and from Blackpool Tower to the big one, which we've already established at 1288 feet. We have 1536 feet from the Ice Blast to Blackpool Tower, a difference of 248 feet. And if you divide 248 into 1536, you come out with 6.19. Nearest damn it, 6.2. So having a quick look at our picture, we see that the distance between the two lights is measured by the red arrow, if you remember, and that red arrow fits into the total distance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a bit times. That bit's probably somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3 of the total length of the line. So 6.2-ish agrees very, very well with the figure that we obtained for the Ice Blast to the big one and Blackpool Tower. If we go back to the other possibilities, I think from this line of sight, it cannot be the mirror ball, because there's no way it fits in 16 times into this distance. There are some other reasons for thinking that we might well be looking at these, and I have another photograph to show. So doing a bit of a search on the internet for Blackpool at night, we come up with, I managed to find this particular photograph. So the direction to Hoylake is roughly straight down in the direction that I'm moving the cursor. Hopefully that comes out on the video. But if you like, it's a line is almost straight ahead, slightly to the right hand side as we're looking at this picture. And this is the topmost point of the big one and the bright light on top of it. The next highest point on this roller coaster also has a red light on it. This is much lower than this one. There's a possibility that we're seeing both those lights together because of the angle of view, but I actually think that this light is probably hidden from view behind the horizon. And over here on the left-hand side of the picture, we see the top of the ice blast also with a red light on top because it's a couple of 100 feet tall. The top of the roller coaster here is a little bit nearer to 230, 240 feet tall. So the ice blast would come up to somewhere like about here. So I think this is further evidence that we have the correct lights now, the ice blast and the top of the big one roller coaster. One final comment, and that is just some conclusions. I am happy to conclude that this is Blackpool Tower. I don't think there's much doubt about that. I conclude that this is the big one, the roller coaster on the pleasure beach at Blackpool. And I conclude that this is the ice blast, which is also on the pleasure beach located fairly close to the roller coaster. I don't think that there's any evidence here to support the suggestion that the mirror ball is visible. The height of these various objects, it will be the subject of an upcoming video looking at the height of Blackpool Tower and the height of the other objects that we can see, and considering whether these are in fact what we should expect. This is what we should expect of a view from Hoylake across the Irish Sea towards Blackpool. Okay. See you next time, or see you soon.
So while I was making this video, or at least correcting the error in the figures earlier in this video, I had also been working on another video looking at the image from Ranty Rant Rant and Blackpool, and trying to establish some other factors to do with Blackpool Tower and Blackpool itself. And whilst I was doing that, I noticed that there was further evidence that this is not the mirror ball at all. If this was the mirror ball and this was the big one, then the height difference between these two lights would be something in the order of 200 feet. Might be a bit more, might be a bit less, but let's say 200 feet for simplicity. So if we draw a horizontal line from each of the lights across towards Blackpool Tower, we get a measure of 200 feet relative to Blackpool Tower. And we can then see that the amount of Blackpool Tower visible here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and maybe 9, because there's actually a flagpole on top of here, 8 or 9 times 200 feet. So what we're seeing here, the amount of Blackpool Tower that we're seeing is 1,600 feet high or 1,800 feet high, something of that sort. And now we know that the whole of Blackpool Tower from base to top is 500 feet, 518 feet high. So this provides further evidence that this cannot possibly be a picture of the mirror ball here, or a light emanating from the mirror ball, because if it was, then Blackpool Tower would have to be 3 times or more than 3 times higher than it really is. So I think thanks very much to Ranty for pointing out the little numerical error that I made earlier on when quoting his work, because it's allowed me to come up with even better evidence, or more evidence anyway, which added to the evidence we already have, I think makes it absolutely a cast iron case now that we are not seeing the mirror ball here.